The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
Bag, ruining my opening shot. Rubbish! Oh boy, you know what this is? The FedEx man made me real happy today. Been waiting for this a long time. Does anybody know what this is? Seriously, anybody know what this is? It's my new Fatbike. Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Holy crap, look at the size of those tires. It's my new Fatbike. Let's put it together. Okay, on a more serious note, if you saw what I did last time with the Quicko flicks and stuff like that, you would know that I took part of the next WWMJ and kind of made a Quicko flick out of that to be kind of, preview and things like that, have a little fun with this sort of thing. But it's here, it's finally here. The Mongoose Malus, not the cheapest fat bike out there, but pretty close to it. Fat bike. I don't know how big these tires are, but these things are built for snow, so I probably want to inflate the tires up to max PSI, which you're not normally supposed to do, in order to ride it on tar without hardly any rolling resistance. We'll revisit the deliberately underinflated tires thing if I want to ride this on snow in the wintertime. But this is a fat-ass bike to match its rider. Yes, I'm a fat ass, so it's fitting that a fat ass like me would have a fat ass bike with fat ass tires. It just seems to make all the sense in the world. The one drawback to this bike is higher rolling resistance than its not so fat ass colleagues, contemporaries, whatever. It's got a little bit more rolling resistance, so in order to get it moving at the same speed, I'll have to put some more oomph into it, which is exactly what I need if I ever want to get proper exercise and not be so much of a fat ass. So as you can imagine, the whole fat thing is, I'm a fat ass, I need a bike to match, even if it's harder to move at the same speed as a normal bike. That way, hopefully I can, slim down a little by having what I like to call practical exercise. The exercise that you do because you were going to do it anyways. So give the car a break, drive around town on this thing. Just wear my helmet, put a basket on the back of the dumb thing, and get a bike lock and a chain. So, yeah. It's not a very good fat bike. It's one of the cheapest ones out there, and it's certainly not going to look as good as the Dolomite, which is a similar fat bike in this price range that's even cheaper. But I didn't want flashy colors. I want it to look like just a piece of metal. I don't want it to be anything interesting looking, I don't want it to be anything expensive looking. I just want it to go from point A to point B. And all these snobby Euro riders, or whatever they're called, with the bikes that cost as much as cars, they can keep that crap. I just want something that moves. Something made of metal that can take a hit or two if I accidentally bump into something, and something that I could mod if I wanted to mod it. This fits the bill, and hopefully it's still decent in the snow, too. Okay, I don't have the space to do what two-stroke turbo did. Yeah! Manual override! It's my new fat bike! This is why Mr. Two-Stroke Turbo attempted this in his shop and not in an actual, residential area. Whatever. There we go. This thing's a mod project already, so it has its place in the project area. Just takes up a little bit of space behind the couch, don't you think? I watched a little too much Netflix this weekend. I gotta pull that back down. You can actually see that it's an old plaid sofa from the 70s. Whatever. Okay. This WWMJ is gonna come to a very abrupt end, just like the times I've taken this thing out and tried to ride it so far. Yeah, I wanted something that would kick my ass until I was no longer so out of shape that it kicked my ass, and this is exactly what I was looking for. The problem with fat bikes, they may look kind of interesting, but they're actually harder to ride than most other bikes because of, laws of physics. More rolling resistance on the wide tires. I have these close to max PSI too, because not really planning on doing much with off-roading with these as of yet, but these can be underinflated all the way down to, I think, 5 to 10 PSI or something for use on trails or over snow. So it's probably this thing's a freak enough as it is of a bike, and I'm doing freaking it out even more by having the tires anywhere near max PSI. So I've been around the block a couple of times on this thing and have been winded at the end each time. A lot of course, has to do with me being a fat ass. I haven't ridden a bike on a regular basis in over 15 years, so needless to say, this is the sort of thing that's going to kick my ass until I become a bit kick-ass at it. There is no in-between. And I'm already modding this thing. It's got me thinking that maybe I should skip all the computer stuff and all the electronic stuff, because once this stops kicking my ass, it's going to be a much healthier hobby than anything that I currently do. Of course, yeah, I can still tinker with stuff. I can still tinker with electronics and computers and things like that, but I need something healthy to do. I need something healthy to do because other forms of exercise just don't cut it because they're just not practical. There's only two kinds of exercise that you will ever stick to. What you actually always want to do, or something that has practical benefits. So in this case, I can give the car a rest and go from point A to point B on this thing. Maybe put a basket on the back or on the handlebars or something. But I can go from point A to point B on this thing and actually find a way to use this to ride around town or something along those lines. But I'm already modding it. For example, the horrendous Mongoose seat is as awful as everybody says it is. It's hard foam. I was joking after day one with this thing. Well, first of all, I actually got bruised by this thing just from riding up and down. I actually got some bruises from this thing. It's technically foam, but it's hard enough that it's like you might as well be plastic. You might as well just be sitting on the pipe. This thing is terrible, and that's pretty much the consensus. Everywhere else I've seen, folks have these things. They always swap the seat first thing. So I got rid of that, and I have a little Schwinn special with foam, notably softer instead. I'm tossing around the idea of swapping this out for a cruiser seat, which is extra wide for beach cruiser bikes and stuff like that. Maybe a fat seat would fit the rider just like the bike does. And yeah, I've already had a kid be like, "Whoa, look at the tires on that thing," and some teenagers were chuckling at me as they rode by in their SUV, and promptly got stuck behind a bunch of traffic on one of the roads around here. Here's the thing. You complain about the traffic, don't make fun of the people that are trying to take a break from being part of the traffic. It's not that difficult. I'm wondering if I even need to underinflate the tires in the wintertime, though, because the cold makes, air contracts and stuff in the cold, so if these are close to max PSI now, maybe they'll be at a more appropriate PSI for snow once they cool off, once they sell like that out in the winter cold. But we'll worry about winter later. For now, though, if I can stop flapping the battery cover on the bike. Did have to do some modifications, though. The big thing when buying these bikes is, remember, when you get one of these things out of the box, and you don't buy from a bike shop, the last person that touched your machine is somebody who either had to make a production quota in a factory somewhere, so they were rushing like crazy, and they probably didn't have everything just so, or it's or somebody in like a department store who also is treated like crap by their employer with how retail is these days. That not exactly the kind of people you want tuning something that could be the difference between life and death, depending on what bolt comes loose or what have you. But when this thing came out of the box, I had to adjust the brakes already. The front brakes are really nice. The disc brakes are actually remind me more of car brakes, although much like my car's brakes, they squeak until they warm up. First time I take this, I'm like, oh brother, these things are just like the ones in my car. And then they're once they've warmed up a bit from some friction, and once they're out on the road, then they're fine. Or maybe it's residue from sitting too long. But this came out of the box with the front brake rubbing, so I had to take an Allen wrench and readjust the thing so that there's the recommended 32nd of an inch on each side of whatever. So. No problems with this wheel though. I'm wondering if I should apply any grease anywhere though. Another problem with these things that helps keep them cheap is the bare minimum of grease. It's like that tacky mechanic that like fixes something with only one screw or something. So I do have some wax grease for this thing that dries to a wax for the chain. I might put it somewhere else too if there's other areas that I should put some grease in. Might even take apart the crank to see how that works. That's another thing I want to do with these things, is get more experience with stuff that has moving parts this way. So that's a big gap in my skill set right now. I'm very good with electronics and computers and stuff, but moving parts is... And the fun part is, as I've tried to figure out how things work mechanically, I found out I have a bit more mechanical aptitude than most of the folks that I work with. And sometimes they'll be like sitting there looking, what? And even if it's not electronic at all, I'll find out very quickly how gears turn or what you should oil or grease or something along those lines. Maybe it's not too late to become a car mechanic or something. So, anyways, yeah, softer seat, might try a fat-ass cruiser seat, but I don't have cruiser handlebars, so I want to maintain an aggressive riding position because I'm not like moseying around the block in this thing. My outrageously Richard Simmons audacious goal is to be able to almost keep pace with the traffic, at any traffic that's going the speed limit anyways. Have bicycle commuting be an option on this thing, and go uphill. And go uphill. The sugary thing I had earlier is catching up to me now. The last thing that I want to get working is this speedometer. Now the problem with these bike computers is not that they're cheap, they are, but this cheap piece of junk, unfortunately, was designed for those skinny little road regular bikes, so the magnet on the spoke isn't close enough to the sensor to actually register when it goes past. So I gotta ad hoc some things in order to get that working if I want to have a speedometer on this thing. And that's really the thing too. You know, some folks are like, what are you riding that thing for? Or maybe they'll be smart enough to figure out, yeah, fat ass bike to match the rider. But here's the thing, yeah, this looks kind of ridiculous compared to... There is one kid in the neighborhood that has the Walmart version of this that doesn't have any gears. I saw him riding it around once. So I'm not the only one in town who's messing around with one of these dumb things. But here's the thing, as stupid as it may look to have a fat ass like me exhausting himself on a fat bike riding it around town, how much more stupid would it look if I was sitting on a wiry little piece of, you know, like the skinny tired road bikes or whatnot, kind of like what I had as a teenager. I had something with those goofball handlebars and things like that. Yeah, how much dumber would it look? I'd be getting jokes about, hey, how come you're not top heavy? You and your fat ass on top of that itty bitty bike. Yeah, I'd get all kinds of jokes in that direction. So I'm screwed either way. The thing is, I'm fat and I want something practical to have a form of exercise that I do because it makes sense to do so, like going from point A to point B. The scooter is in the same vein, but with solid wheels, it's not as good with, say, the sidewalks and stuff around here. Not that I want to ride this thing on a sidewalk, but... So yeah, that's the situation with the fat bike. I'm not really going to be talking about this thing too much, but it is a mechanical mod project, so I will be doing some things with it, some other modifications, and heck, I couldn't even wait like a day or two before I wanted to mod out the seat and put a speedometer on it. But yeah, I was screwed either way. One last thing, and I might bring this up again in a vlog later on. One last thing. I remember back to when I rode a bike when I was a teenager and about 100 pounds lighter and 15 plus years younger. And, you know, here I am. I did want to be aggressive. These things are harder to ride than their regular sized counterparts, especially uphill. But the... You know, when I consider, even on flat surfaces, or even slight inclines, where I used to ride when I was a kid and a teenager, and now I go out to the end of the road and back twice and I'm winded. For those of you who wonder why certain people in the medical profession want to consider obesity as a disease, that is why. I might as well have some kind of disease with how I 2 laps around the block and I'm winded on this thing because I'm that much of a fat ass who hasn't been taking care of himself. Yeah, it may be a self-inflicted disease, but so's the hardening of your arteries from 30 years of smoking cigarettes. I mean, just because you can do it to yourself doesn't mean it's not something that's bad. So, yeah, tell the folks in the fat acceptance movement to put that in their blubbery pipes and smoke it. And screw them. I'd much rather be a cyclist than a computer nerd. This is what I like to call do or die exercise. It's probably the sort of thing that either I'm going to get in shape because I'm actually riding this thing around town, or it's going to kill me for the rate I'm going. Because I'm out there pedaling up to a decent speed in the whole 9 yards, and especially when it's hot out in the summertime, you get decent wind once you get up to a certain speed. So, yeah, I might be collapsing in the chair more than a few nights as I get my ass kicked by this thing until I get to the point where I'm a kick-ass cyclist. But I have heard of people riding these things and losing like 100 pounds in the span of 6 months to a year just because they're doing something physical. But that's worth its own vlog about how the United States' gluttonous American culture outlaws physical activity de facto after high school. We'll talk about that at some point later on. And we got a creaky spot in the floor, even though it's a hard floor. Anyways. So, time to clean up those zip ties. I'm going to have one last attempt at that thing before I disconnect it, and maybe try something else. I know it works, I just got to get the spoke magnet close enough to the sensor somehow with those fat-ass tires. Then again, the whole thing's fat-ass to match its rider. Of course, maybe I should complete the ensemble with a fat-ass seat. But all I really needed was something softer. Plus, I don't want to have screwy posture because I have a fat-ass cruiser seat, but I'm leaning forward to mountain bike handlebars. Alright, this is one heck of a long take. It could probably be its own video unto itself, but I guess the video didn't fall apart completely after all. That's the first impressions of the Fatbike. I definitely would recommend checking out Two Stroke Turbo's videos on the Mongoose Dolomite and these other Walmart specials. Hey, you know, gotta get the exercise somehow. And as much as this looks ridiculous, especially with me on it, it would look even more ridiculous if I was Captain Fatass on top of a skinny, wiry bike that some Euro cyclist in spandex. Oh yeah, I don't need a motor car, I got me this wonderful bike. Okay, enough references to the folks in Europe. Those Euro cyclists are in far better shape than I could ever be. So, yeah, don't make fun of success. Whatever. It's enough Fatbike video nonsense for now. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.